Hey, Paul again for Retro Gaming Arts, and today we're going to be talking about another sick RPG, and that is Saga Frontier 2. Now, Saga Frontier 2, similar to 1 in the way where you get 2 characters, not 7 this time, where you get to pick from each character and you get to play both of them all the way through and see the story. But each time you're playing as whichever character, you also are kind of forced to play the other character, and it makes it more, builds the story together a little bit more, and it's unique. It doesn't take place in the same world as Saga Frontier 1 at all. Completely different world, completely different characters, a little bit similar gameplay. They added some more little extra things to it that Saga Frontier 1 didn't have, but it's much more story driven, which is really, really cool. Because everybody in this world uses magic except the main character. He just can't use magic whatsoever. So he wants to make weapons out of iron, and everybody's like, why would you do such a thing? That's stupid. So it's his quest to build that kind of weaponry instead of using magic, and it's really sick to see the story play out, and it's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed Saga Frontier 2 as well. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you in-depth more details about this game. So let's go check it out.
Hey guys, this is Dylan here with Retro Gaming Arts, bringing you Saga Frontier 2. So this game is a lot different than the first one. As you can tell already, it's a completely different world, completely different time zone. It's entirely different altogether. So right now you're looking at a king with an army. They just had a war, and the king has just had a son. So they're calling off the pursuit and going back to see what's going on with their new heir. So this is kind of like your world map. You get to choose different instances, and you can choose whatever you want. In this game, there's actually 2 main characters instead of 7. So here's your royal family. So the beginning of this game doesn't start off so cheery. You are Gustav, the son to the king, and this is the firebrand, sorry. So this is kind of the heirloom, and the heir has to be able to activate its magical properties, or he is not deemed worthy to be an heir to the kingdom. So here we got the king, showing that he can activate it. So here comes young Gustav, attempting to claim his right to the throne. Let's see what happens. And fail. So you start this game off as a failure, basically. And your father is not very understanding about this whole situation, as you're about to see. Yeah, it. So he basically banishes you from the kingdom, says you're not his child, calls you an it. Your mother goes with you, the queen, and you're on a mission to prove yourself. So in this game, it's similar with the combat, where or the world map, or the map, when you run around, the monsters are actually physically there in front of you. They run up and attack you. This was pretty cool. I thought this was something that was very different, that I hadn't seen in any RPG. Again, they're pulling out some new things. You actually choose your combinations, and it ensues through the battle. So this only happens when you're playing as one character without a team. With a team, you have abilities that are combinations already preset. But when you're playing by yourself, you actually get to choose your combinations and pick what you do. And they have different properties and different, attributes to the skills. So you pick your line of attacks, and it goes back and forth and has this cool kind of combat scenario that plays out. Again, the same way, you don't have levels, you just gain HP and stats as you go along. And Gustav, throughout the game, originally doesn't really care about anything until he eventually is trying to take over the kingdoms and claim his right to the throne. So he's just undermined this general and raised his flags in their city. Smart dude. So this game is more of a story-driven kind of game. It's not as open as the first one. It's more of a story that you're kind of playing through rather than making one of your own. So here, they've just landed back at the original continent that your main character Gustav is from, Gustav the 12th, and you are coming back to your homeland for the first time in many years. This is a cool aspect to it too. This is a little bit of like a war scenario. So you have your characters and each of them represent a group of soldiers, and you place them on the battlefield where you want. You get to move around, you get in battles, and whoever wins, the other person will retreat. So your objective here is to defeat your kid brother who hates you because he was never really told what happened in the first place. So he's now the acting heir to the throne, and you're trying to defeat him to reclaim your rightful place as king. I thought this was a pretty cool addition to the game, how they have this little strategy-based kind of battle scene where you get to, move around and battle like armies, and then you get into a battle and it's actually like a normal turn-based kind of action combat scene. So you got your little dudes, they're coming out. And here you'll notice that you don't actually get to choose different combinations. So you have one attack that each character gets to do. I would imagine because it would be very difficult to implement that other system with 4 characters to choose between. So you get a whole bunch of different attacks and stuff like that. In this game, everything is done with magic. So battles are always fought with magic. And your main character, Gustav, is kind of like inept when it comes to magic. He can't use it at all in any way, shape, or form. So he actually uses iron weapons, which everybody laughs at him for and thinks is absolutely ridiculous. Everybody else uses wood weapons, flint weapons, the stone weapons, and each one of those has a magical property that allows them to use different attacks based on that style of magic. So I thought that was kind of interesting, how there's not a normal, iron or steel, swords and armor kind of gameplay. So you see we've beaten our enemy here and they are about to retreat. So they've retreated and they're done, and you win the kingdom. There you go. So this is actually Will. This is your second character that you get to play as, and he is not tied to the original main character of the story. I thought this was cool how you can actually choose between whether or not you want to play as one character, any one of the people on your team, or to fight as a team. So you actually have that choice, and you can choose which type of combat style you want to play as. So you can play as a team and choose your preset combos, use your magic and stuff like that, all the same. Or you can fight it, or you can fight solo and have the same combat style that we showed you before, where you get to choose your different attacks and it kind of plays out almost like a little movie for you. So this game didn't have as many of the puzzle aspects or things like that as Saga Frontier 1 did. It's more story driven, as I said before. It's not so much of a open kind of game. There's much more direction. You don't really have to figure out where to go. It kind of just tells you. and you just kind of play through this story. The story itself is, I think it's a little bit better. It's a little bit more in depth because they focus more heavily on it. The combat, I think Saga Frontier personally, the first one had a little better combat. They had some more unique properties. It was, still interesting either way. And again, as you're seeing, their stats are raising at the end of every fight, but you don't gain levels. Overall, I thought it was a pretty cool game. It's a lot of the same things. You get to dodge. You see them running around all these monsters here. I didn't want to fight at that point in time. But altogether, I had a lot of fun with this game. I had a good story, and I thought it was a really interesting take on an RPG. They kind of kept some of the same story elements of having multiple characters, but all in all, it was quite a different game. So thanks for checking it out, and back to Paul.
So that was Saga Frontier 2. Like I said, it's much more story-driven. It was great. The story was very, very enjoyable in this, and that's what makes it awesome. And I like how each Saga game is just a completely different world, different characters, but just that same touch and feel that they both have together. And I like story-driven games because that's why you play story-driven games, is to see an awesome story. It's like reading a really good book, but visually, and then interacting with it. That's why I like RPGs the most, because it's like some of them challenge modern literature. Awesome, just awesome game. So if you haven't tried Saga Frontier 2, definitely you gotta check it out. If you have, like I say, replay it, wait a couple years in between so you forget the story and get to experience it again. So thanks for watching this. Feel free to check us out on Twitter under Retro Gaming Arts, and then also the YouTube of Retro Gaming Arts for more videos about all the games that we like.